Hello. Can you guys hear me? Say yes on the chat. Okay. So I think we're gonna wait for more people to join. Um, Today it is just me doing the book club with you guys because Louis is still not feeling very well. He's still having to take painkillers, and of course, he was feeling a little bit better last week, so he went to exercise, which he shouldn't have. He should have rested longer, and he ended up overextending his back again. So, yeah, so he has to rest, and I actually forbade him to be here today. So, I hope I can help you guys open the book for you guys. So, let's wait for a couple more people because I think it was around 10 people that said they were interested, so we can just wait a little bit. Um, and soon we can start. I'm like, really excited to talk about the book with you guys because I think if I were to rank Moby Dick, it would be probably on my top three best books, favorite books. So, yes. And of course, you guys know already kind of how it works. So if you want to come in, you can raise your hand. Jay asked, what are the other two favorite books? Well, probably War and Peace, and number one kind of flip-flops, to be honest. It really does. Maybe Crime and Punishment, maybe Brothers Karamazov. I don't know. I flip-flop with that, to be honest. But Moby Dick, it's gotta be on my list for sure. I think we can start. Is A people in? Thanks, David. Um, let's start. So I wrote a little introduction, but I'm not gonna read it. I'm just gonna keep it as my little guideline. So this was a very interesting reread for me, and I'm very interested in listening from you guys where the book stands in the sense of like how much did you enjoy the experience of reading Moby Dick, if it was your first time, if it wasn't your first time reading the book. When Herman Melville published this in 1851, it really confused people because it's not a straightforward book. I think part of it, it's what lends it its mystery in the sense of like a lot of people know about Moby Dick. It has imbued our culture so much. It has this universal quality to it, but at the same time, not a lot of people now are so acquainted with the book itself, right? So I think it's interesting because when you read it for the first time, it's definitely not what most people would expect of the story. There's so many inserts, this dance weird chapters about whaling, the mechanics of whaling, the biology of the whales, and then you have this like almost script like play style, this sea adventure, but it's not really a sea adventure. It has the Shakespearean epic, also the poetic elements. It's full of symbology. It has this fascinating, sprawling, almost chaotic structure that adds to the sense that Melville was trying to capture the world in its entirety. And in my opinion, I think Harold Bloom said as well that this is more of a prose poem than it is a novel. So I want to hear from you guys, and it would be nice if someone jumped in so we can all kind of start talking. And especially if anyone is very, very acquainted with the book as well, it would be very nice. But I'm happy to continue to talk. Um, yeah, and at the center of it all, I mean, you have this character of Moby Dick, the whale, right? That names the book. That is much more than an animal, right? It's this looming, mysterious presence that seems to stand for so many different things that we cannot control, things that we cannot explain. And also, there's something that always fascinated me, particularly about the symbology of the whale in its whiteness. Um, I tend to look at it from a perspective of the sublime, but I'm excited to see what you guys have to say. So, anyone wants to jump in? Brian, wait. Hello.
Hello, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you guys hear Brian? Yeah, of course.
Okay, perfect. So I want to say this was my first time reading Moby Dick. Like you said, I've heard about this book like my whole life. But and I thought I knew about the book until I read it, if I'm being honest, and it was like a total total surprise to me. First of all, I loved it. It might be like one of the
Oh,
best books I've ever read, like ever. What was it called? I just finished it last night, and I think after I read the final chapter, I just like sat for like an hour. It gave me like a rush. I couldn't even go to sleep. It's like at 1 in the morning.
wow.
I couldn't even sleep. You know what I mean? I was just up. But what's it called? I guess just to talk about I like to talk about the structure of the book first, I suppose would be a good way to start it off. I like how
Yeah,
it
yeah.
starts. It's very when it's online, it's very like I kind of made a joke to myself. It's like a vlog. We're just following this guy on his day to day and like how each chapter just takes off where the last one uh leaves off, you know what I mean? Except when they go to bed and stuff, you know, but you're just following this guy on his day to day. Very slow, like not in a bad way. It's very slow and you're just for a feel for
Yeah.
everything. And then once it jumps into like the whaling chapter, once we're finally out at sea, that's when there's like you start getting like these time jumps, and you're not like exactly sure how long in between some of the chapters are. Like, of course, they have like their cluster chapters, like, is a way I've seen it described, where it's like, okay, these few
Mm,
chapters are just focusing on this, like maybe the dissection of the whale or something like that. And that is
yeah.
like pretty like one after another. But in between those, it's kind of like you don't really know like how far in between it is or how long even. I mean, unless I missed it, I don't even know how long of a journey this was. It's definitely months if they go down. I'm assuming they go around the Horn of South America and come up to the Pacific. I mean, that's I don't know sailing, but let's take forever.
What did you thought about the chapters that are like more encyclopedic? As I actually really like them. I know that it's kind of dense and people have difficulty getting into that, but I feel like it gives the full picture. It allows you to really understand because it's such an for us now specifically. I think it's so alien, like the
Yeah.
concept of weight, so unique. So
So
it really helps, right?
For sure. What's it called? And what's I that was a warning I had gotten about the book. Not like a warning, but like people had said like, oh, it just goes off and it's just like textbook stuff and yada yada
Mm,
yada. And it takes so long before like into by the time that starts happening, you're like into the book. So I'm just like, okay, I was not opposed to it. And maybe at first, I'm just like, okay, this is a little much. But after a while, I didn't even like start thinking about it as like these chapters are separate from the book. It was all just like they all added to it. You know what I mean? I like whether the
kind of merge as
information,
well.
yeah, whether the information is still relevant for whaling today. It doesn't really matter because he puts you in that time and place and the most relevant information there, and it's like painting this picture for you. It's like it's kind of funny to me what ends up happening at the end. I think it's kind of funny how in depth
Mhm.
and all how much none of it like matters when it comes down to it. You know what I mean? It's all
Yeah,
like
yeah,
you could kind of say it's like I don't know, like we're like when you got characters like Stub and Starbucks, how one is more practical and one is more on the spiritual side. It's like you have this debate, and then at the end, it's like you're met by the force of nature or the force of God, whatever way you look at it. Like, does that all the things we ascribe to everything? Does that even matter? You know what I mean? So, kind of getting lost. Oh yeah, and what I like about this chapter structure, like in the sea game, like with clusters and stuff, it like I've had some experience out to sea, so it kind of really
oh,
gave me that feeling of like where the days blend in together. like you start missing time. It kind of feels like, and you're just like I don't want to say like a slow descent into madness, but you get a different mindset and stuff like that. And I really got that
Mm.
from the book. Like even how when Ishmael starts like describing the tale, and I found that to be a little like there's like innuendos within that chapter, but it's like undeniable when is it I think George mentioned the chapter "Squeeze of the Right Hand." You know what I mean? It's just like, what is he even talking? Like, what is he like trying to get at here? And then like I lost what I said. What I was going with that. Um, yeah, it's like
You talk. Go on, go on.
yeah, like how yeah you don't really know what time is, and then you kind of started like losing my. I was kind of thinking about you played Resident Evil 2.
I seen Lewis play Resident Evil 2, so yeah, I know
Okay,
the story.
but there's points where you could pick up letters, right, and like read people's what's it called, like diaries essentially, and then like you first read the first chapter, it's all like coherent, and like by the end, it's like they're like turning into a zombie, so it's all like ramblings. I'm not saying that's how the book is, but that's just like the feel.
Jay's laughing at you.
You know what I mean? And then I guess one last thing structurally, I would say, I was thinking, but towards the end, I was thinking of this is just structurally. I was thinking of Dune and the way what's his name Herbert described the pace of Dune, where he considered it, he called it coital, like where it starts off very slow and then slowly ramps up, and then at the end it climaxes and then it's over. And that's how I kind of like felt like the structure of the book reminded me of like the first Dune book, but that's
This is
just me.
interesting. This idea that you said about like all those different characters representing different stances and ways of approaching life and looking into life, and then ultimately it doesn't matter in the force of nature and the force of God and the force of history. I think it deals with all those things. Jay, you raised your hand though. You wanted to join.
Yeah, I wanted to join the one talking about the chapters and the
Go on.
boring quote unquote chapters, but I just didn't want to interrupt. I'll just step back and mention most of. I think it's one of the perfect books, kind of like book in a idealized sense, because it has everything. It has boring quote unquote facts. It has interesting adventures. It has different characters, different perspectives. It has philosophical parts. It has made up science facts and all of this, and plays and all
Yeah.
the other stuff. I think I don't really enjoy reading the facts, some of them, like because the thinking how the brain and the skull structure reflects on the human and on the whale and the smartness and all it's kind of okay, it's a bit outdated. I'm not interested in that, and I see the point of it in the book, but I'm kind of reading it like, okay, I just want to get it through. And maybe on the foliage and how the whales are different, like books and foliages and stuff, I'm not interested in classifications. But the
Mm.
idea of those chapters are really good. Like I see what it's going for and the point of it, and it's really important. And I see how some people hate it and some people like it. And I'm like, oh yeah, I like the idea of reading it, but not particularly reading those chapters.
Yeah, but even
um,
like in
but
the
my favorite
beginning,
chapters
like
were the beginning. The first 10
this
chapters
one.
were my favorites. The
Oh,
relationship between the main character and I call him Q because I don't know how to pronounce the name, but the relationship between the civilized man and then the savage man, and how the savage man is more civilized in some sense and less civilized in other sense. I like those, the human part of the first 10 chapters, I think the most on this read. I read it before once when I was high school. I didn't understand it,
yeah,
didn't care for it. It was boring, so it like kind of considers my first like more mature read, and I really
yeah.
liked it. Yeah,
I also really like their relationship. It's the contrast of it so interesting. And right in the beginning, you have this uncomfortable, massive guy, and he's like lying next to him. It paints such a good picture, and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
even comical in some ways as well.
It
Yeah,
is
and
like
he's like, I'm
when
gonna
they're
go lie on a bench instead, and then he's like, oh, it's not very comfortable. What if I put this bench here? It's still not comfortable. I guess I'll go lay with this guy.
Yeah.
It's really good.
And right in the beginning as well, like the book starts with like the first thing before even like call me Shmael, obviously the most famous line, but just this etymology of like what a whale is, and then after a bunch of extracts from different passages, from different like you have Hamlet, you have a bunch of passages and extracts, almost like he's trying to kind of condense the idea of sailing and whaling and everything into one thing. And I read somewhere that Melville called like he was trying to create a mighty book,
Mhm.
like in what you said about this idea of like the complete work of art, and even Forrest put on the chat as well. I think it's totally encapsulating Moby Dick, because honestly he didn't need it to go this deep, and he goes so deep into everything. Like by the end of the book, you know so much about whaling, and for no reason whatsoever, but it makes the story so much better, right? Yeah, I
Yeah,
really
and
liked
the
it. Did you?
experience.
I even like did my own research on whales, like
Even more than
supplementary
there
to
is in
the
the
book.
book? No way.
Yeah, I was just like got interested, and like I was just like looking stuff up. So I don't like I was like I need to see what a right whale looks like. I need to see this,
Yeah,
and then yeah, and I was shocked to I thought sperm whales were extinct, but they're not. And yeah, I find them terrifying. I think I've been traumatized from the original Pinocchio with Monstro. That always
oh,
terrified me as
This
a
one.
kid, and they still like
Oh,
whales in the sea terrify me. So I don't know. I loved it.
but did you said you had experience in the sea, like fishing, or did I misheard that?
Oh no, yeah, I was in the Navy.
Ah, oh, that's awesome. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
I I actually love whales. I think they're like some of the most majestic, sublime animals we have.
yeah.
Like, I think they're so beautiful, and the way they sound. I don't know. I always really like them.
I've never
Um,
seen one in real life, but you know, like I think they're beautiful when I like see videos and stuff like that. But something that big in the ocean, I don't know, it terrifies me. Maybe if once I encountered it, I'll feel different. But I know they're like gentle for the most part. Like majority of whales are gentle, you know. But I don't know.
there's just one
It's,
asshole.
yeah, yeah, just. But yeah, I saw that sperm whales were known to like fight back and like supposedly I read this and I didn't look much into it, but like the final three chapters is like loosely like based off of like what the Essex that got like destroyed, right? The one that they mentioned in the beginning, and that's like a real whaling boat that was attacked by a sperm whale and sunk. And I think
yeah,
you use like accounts from that to construct those final scenes. It's kind of like what Cormac McCarthy did with the Apache attack. Like that was constructed off of actual attacks, if I'm not mistaken. Like he got like real
yeah,
counts of
it was.
like attacks and stitched it together to make a awesome sequence, I guess you could call it.
What did you
But
guys? I mean, before we jump ahead to the end, I wanted to ask what you guys think of Ahab.
Oof.
selfish, mad. I don't know.
Selfish.
I don't
I
know,
think
but all I'm saying is that scene on the quarterdeck, I may have been riled up too. You know what I mean? That scene
Mm.
may have convinced me in that moment. You know,
oh,
but
Forrest is coming.
uh,
I have a quick comment before. I wrote it down in one of the self-sufficient chapters at some point. Like at some point, there were discussions about putting your will on others and like just being ready for the critical situations, right? Like we were talking about. Lewis
Yeah,
was mentioning how you'll be ready, like if something happens and you have to stand up for yourself or like fix the tire when it breaks or some fight happening in the streets to be able to interfere and stuff like this, right? And I was thinking about this when
yeah,
I was reading about Ahab. Is it, oh, is he a god? Is he a normal person? He's like the idol. He's the hero. He's like a narcissist or whatever. All these things. But the thing is that there are multiple chapters where people follow him because he does things, right? Like because he has the will and he puts it on others, and whatever
mhm,
you think about him, you cannot resist, right? That He makes them sign the contract that to follow him to the death. He makes them do this and that, and it doesn't matter if he is whatever, normal, not normal, paranormal, but not. But people follow him, and it's one of the interesting things about this for me in the book, that we are attracted and drawn to people who are willing to follow their things, and we just follow them for them, right? Like, it's just, you can put it all over, interpolate it onto CEOs, put it on different presidents and other things, like this small thing, like, oh, this is their dream, or like their Moby Dick, whatever people say, and we help them instead of helping ourselves, because they have an idea, or they have a will, or they have some goal, and other people just help them. And it's quite similar in real life. Like, we have whatever 10% of people who do things and 90% of people who help them do their things, and either they're good or bad, it doesn't matter. But
he's like
but it is what
very.
it is.
Go ahead. Yeah, he's very strong-willed. I guess you could call him charismatic. I guess that's another similarity to Dune, right? With Paul, like he gets all these people for his own selfish, what's it called, gain and stuff like that. But yeah, the quarterdeck scene is interesting when he finally reveals that his main mission is to get Moby Dick. And I guess what's interesting about the quarterdeck, the setting, is that's where you steer the boat. So essentially, the setting
Yeah.
of that is perfect. But he's like this is where the book changes course officially. I guess you could say it's like now we're
Yeah.
going this way. So the way it was, the setting of it was perfect for that scene. Ahab, yeah, he shows like madness, and he's like becoming more disassociating with human pleasures, I guess you could say, when he gives up his smoking pipe in the early on, and then even at one point he doesn't care about the spermaceti, or is it the oil that's like leaking. Eventually he says okay,
Yeah.
like patch it up, but like he starts like not caring about like earthly pleasures, I guess you could say, and he's just like on a suicide mission, basically, you know, by not like listening to any omens. You know, it gets like comical to a point where it's like, all right, dude, I think nature or God, however you look at it, is hitting you over the head and saying, don't do this, don't do this. And he just like just keeps going. And even like Starbuck is just like, dude, enough. But even Starbuck is there alongside with them. So I don't know what to say about that. You know what I mean? So
Do you
the
think
crew
he
could,
do you think he
Yeah.
knew it's suicide mission, or he expected that he might win?
I don't
like in
think he
the
cared.
like, oh, go ahead.
Yeah,
Like, I think he was blinded by pure manifest destiny
yeah.
incarnate, the sense that he was, I wouldn't even call it vengeance at that point. Harold Bloom said that Ahab was American Satan in the Paradise Lost type of way, in the sense of like
Mm.
like he's the archetype of this shadow that nothing would stop me. Um, Which I can I mean, that's what he is, right? But as you said, like, he has this way, I think George said he has a way with words that you really do, in a way, in some parts, wants to follow him. And in that scene, I think it's very interesting that you said that about that's where you steer the boat, because, I mean, that's what he's doing,
Yeah.
literally as well, in the sense, like, as a captain. But yeah, I think he is the embodiment of how blind will can also lead to pure destruction. And I don't think he cares in the end if he was going to die, if they were all going to die, if he was going to succeed. I think at that point, I don't even think it matters, is what Brian said earlier. Like, like, it doesn't really matter your philosophy. In the end, the force of God, the force of history, the force of nature will always overtake. So, and I think deep down he knew that. I don't know what you guys
Yeah,
think.
I kind of find it like the was it chapter right before the chase begins when Starbuck. I feel like he was when he was trying to get through to him like one last final time, and then Ahab is like, "Oh, I've been wailing for like was it 30, 40 years since he was 18 nonstop." I found that chapter to be a little melancholic, and him like almost like tired in a sense, and almost like if I die right now,
Yeah.
then so be it. You know what I mean? Like
Mm.
I almost saw it as him
Yeah.
like this is the end. Like I don't think don't think he really wanted to kill Moby Dick.
See, yeah.
Almost. I don't
I
know.
kind of, yeah, I kind of agree because like it is a bit of he wanted to be like a legend or the prophecy, like be the guy who has the prophecy and stuff like this. But also, Forrest mentioned the whole idea by the hemp that multiple times he said, "Oh, I'm not gonna die by the hemp. Oh, I am gonna die by the hemp. There is no hemp, so I'm probably not gonna die on this adventure. So we're gonna get him." So at least a few times he mentions like, "Okay, I'm not gonna die this time." So at least he was delusional enough sometimes to think that okay, maybe he might get it. But
Yeah, but
regardless, yeah,
yeah, go ahead. But with the hemp, he more associates it with the gallows. Like, who's gonna hang me here? He's like willfully, I feel like being like ignorant,
yeah,
like with
okay, yeah, yeah, more like that, yeah.
Fadala's warning when they're by the side of the bow, and he gives them those three prophecies, or I guess visions of like what it what's gonna happen right before he dies and stuff, and they all come to fruition at the end. And
Yeah.
I don't know, and yeah, I
Mhm.
think he was like, oh, there's no hearse out here. Where would there be a hearse? Then like, yeah, there's no gallows, and yeah, so
Mhm.
Mm. Yeah. The
That's
way I
another my
see it,
second.
go on, Jay. Sorry,
I
go on.
quickly mentioned that's another one of my favorite parts of the book, the ambiguity, the like
Yeah.
ambiguity and interpretations. There's many different chapters, different idea that he first, as I was mentioning about interpreting what the size of the brain means for the intelligence, or what whiteness means, because it also has opposite meanings, right? Like white is in the divine and white in the like
mhm.
in a good and a bad way, and the same way the prophecies. And there was chapter about coin. He also mentioned the different mates that they were looking at the same coin, and they say like, "Oh, this means this means money, and
Yeah,
this means that," and the other guy says like, "No,
Yeah.
this is a coin, this is money," and like
uh-huh.
different view of things. And the last one at the end of prophecy, right? He said like, "Oh, these three things gonna happen, and then the way you're gonna die," and he's like, "Oh, but this won't happen because of this. This is interpreted this way," and like the whole book is about different interpretations. And then at the end, you can say, "Oh, okay, you can retrofit and fit any your worldview into anything because it's all ambiguous, and at the end, it's whatever the."
Yeah, I think it's just how the way you view the world. I think you're
Yeah.
supposed to like identify with one of the characters, because Ahab sees like the
Mm.
pictures on the coin, and he just sees like his destiny or what it is to him. Starbucks sees I think he says the Holy Trinity basically is with the,
Yeah.
and then it's Stubb, I think, that says it's just a coin. Yeah, you know what I mean. So it's just like, so I don't know. It's like, then that's the whole that's like a lot of the book is like, are
Hmm.
these omens or it's just coincidence? Is it face value, or is there something deeper? And
Hmm.
some people are just going to be like that like their whole lives, and like you won't be able to convince them to change their mind, or it will be hard, you know what I mean? But I don't know, I think the book is genius for doing stuff like that. You can
Yeah.
see it in all
Yeah.
these
And
different ways.
it works in so many levels as well because as Jay was saying, like there's like so many different interpretations that I seen being spoke of about the book, but it also just works in a very human level as a character story, as like just a great adventure as well. And it's crazy when you look at the amount of layers this book has and how entertaining it ultimately is as well. Because I heard many people say that Ahab represents the will of man to expand and dominate nature, and then of course the Moby Dick would be the resistance of the natural world to be dominated. Then you have like the biblical interpretations of Isaiah and Job, even like in relation to
Hmm.
the whiteness of the whale, and obviously the God and the anti-God, and then you have all those like different ideas converging. But ultimately, of course, those the symbolism matters. But what I really love about books like Moby Dick is that you can just read the book and just enjoy the journey itself, and the characters are so good, and just the human aspect of like a man driven by madness and trying to catch something that ultimately will lead to his downfall, and then bringing so many people with him. Like it's such an archetypical story of like mankind. Like even like you think of someone like Hitler, like chasing something absurd, and I know we
Hmm.
always bring up Hitler, but it's just so interesting. It's becoming a thing, but like chasing like this, impossible will, like almost satanic, 30 minutes in, Jason. And like bringing so many people to subvert their morality just for the will of this one man. And I think Ahab is just the epitome of that, you know. And you see so many Ahabs in history, like, you know, Napoleon even seeing that raise that counter for the Hitler mention. But yeah, and I swear, like, this is such an entertaining book, and I don't get when people say this book is boring. I'll fight them to the death because
Oh,
No,
it
okay,
it's
here,
not
yeah,
boring.
I wanted to speak on that. What's great about the book is it's easy to read because it is dense and long, but it doesn't like linger on anything. You know what I mean? It's always like moving,
Yeah.
giving new information. It doesn't like it's like okay, like a 2 page chapter. I was like, okay, I'll have another. You just fly through it. You know what I mean? It's a very easy read. I feel
Mm.
like you know what I mean,
okay.
easily digestible. I suppose I
Yeah,
could say.
I already said it 2 times that it was my favorite part, but this is my third favorite part. Is that I like you have the letterbox, and sometimes I know people like to go read stupid reviews. And Lewis mentioned that there's many people who have one sentence reviews, which
Yeah.
people try to be funny. But then I go on Goodreads sometimes when I finish a book, and half of the comments, like 1 stars and 2 stars, is that that book is boring. I think that's and one of them was actually funny. The one said like surprisingly that the book is set in ocean most of the time, but it's so dry. So it's just I mean I appreciate that one, but it's a lot of comments, and I have
At
a
least it was
hot take.
funny.
Yeah, but I have a hot take on it. I think that a lot of people read Moby Dick because it's the thing like to read, right? It's kind of like Citizen Kane of books as well, that everybody has to do it. It's always on the tops, and people read it and they
Yeah.
waste so much time because it's also a really big book and it's quite complex. And if you don't like it, you still read it because you expect it to, I don't know, go to the party and says, oh yeah, I read it, and you have this idea like, oh, Moby Dick is about chasing Moby Dick. So if I read it and I can say that, then I'm ultimate like party king, right? And a lot of people read it and they hate it and they still finish it. They get it to the end so they can go and tell other people they read it. And I think this is just a perfect, another addition to the perfect being book, because like you don't have to read it. It's a book, right? You don't like it, stop it. You read 2 or 3 chapters, you didn't like
Yeah,
it, stop it. But no, you have to persist. You have to read it. You have to suffer through those chapters. You have to read, even if you don't like the beginning, then there's more boring chapters, and you suffer through it, and then you can tell everybody, yes, I read it. Yes, I'm a genius.
yeah.
I didn't like it,
The
and you
thing
go on
is,
the
like,
Goodreads and like, I didn't like it. I read it. I didn't like it.
yeah.
It's just ultimate.
The thing is, I don't get this idea that, like, okay, for me, like, there is the canon, and then obviously we're trying to read books from the canon, but I don't understand this idea of trying to brag about reading a book. Like, if you don't like it, it's fine. Like, you know, like it's one of them things. But I still I still don't think Moby Dick is a boring book. And if anything, like from the classics, I mean, there's plenty that can be quite slow and boring. This is a massive epic in so many levels, right? Um, I'm gonna change the subject completely, but wait, because I saw Stephen saying something. Oh yeah, at this point, I hope to experience any work of art, classic or not, to be emotionally enthralled by it. Yeah, definitely. Like, there's nothing like if it's supposed to be deemed a classic for this long, it must be good, right? Like, at least this
Yeah.
is why I sometimes go into thinking. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes I read plenty of like, I always say like I don't really like. I mean, it's not that old, but I don't really like Catcher in the Rye that much. And is one that
Yeah.
everyone loves, and I just that's my hot take. I really don't like that book. But Jay, did you read War and
Oh,
Peace as well?
yeah. Recently. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you feel like there's I mean this might be a stretch, but I think there's a bit of parallel between War and Peace and Moby Dick in the sense of like one is very long, but there's an
Wow,
obvious
that's
parallel. That's a great
and it's
parallel.
also
No, but the sec
on your top three, so that's already so many
it's
similarities.
also my top three. Exactly, another similarity. But also this idea of like, you know, like blending history and factoids with like the story itself and the characters and how they interplay with each other.
Okay,
I
sorry, I need to stop. I have ducks chasing the dog. 1 sec, I'll be back.
Okay, don't worry, I'm gonna bring Forrest. Hello. Oh wait, I brought him. Oh, hello, Forrest.
Hey, hold on. Let me turn off push to talk real quick.
Yeah.
Uh, how's everybody doing?
Good.
You hear me?
Good. How are you?
Go. How did everybody like reading Moby Dick?
I loved it.
11 out
Yeah,
of 10.
I've been listening like here and there. I was just like a little busy at the beginning about
Oh.
like sort of the conversations we had. Like I also like comparing it to War and Peace. Yeah, like but you were comparing Ahab to Napoleon earlier, you know? So maybe you just your Regency filled, your Napoleonic filled, which I would say you should read The Red and the Black by Stendhal. I'm just gonna leave that there. But that I
You're
think
gonna have
that
to
the
make you're gonna have to make a longer pitch for the book because I actually want to hear you talk about it after.
yeah, we'll save it. We'll save it. Who knows? Maybe next year. But anyways, like I actually on this read, uh,
Mm,
I mean, there's so much to talk about this book, bro. There's so much in every chapter. I was gonna say that the encyclopedic sections, I actually like them a lot because they kind of they help with the pace and the tone of the adventure. You know what I mean? Like you're
yeah,
learning
definitely.
about all these different ways and these crew members like deal with the whales that they hunt, and you learn all these things about whales before like you interact with them. And it's also like it's such a humanistic book in the sense that kind of what you were getting at when you were talking about like the whole work of art, because it's
Mhm,
so like it's so I don't know how to say it, but like the you know the boat itself and like the economy of Nantucket and how he starts on the island of Manhatos, and you know his name is Ishmael, and he's dealing you know with people like Starbuck and Stag and what's the short guy's name, Fisk, you know. And these ships in all of Melville's work, from what I understand, like I haven't read, but
mm,
I got a little bit of a taste of books like Umu and like Redburn, that you know he does this a lot where he puts the whole world on a ship, and the ship being the microcosm of the interactions of these different cultures and how they react to different things. Like I think one of my favorite scenes is when they see the like I guess the herd or the nursery, and Queequeg is like looking down and he sees the umbilical cord, and freaking you know Ishmael as narrator is kind of saying like, oh, it's funny that you know sperm whales have a 9 month pregnancy and they give birth to one offspring usually, and Queequeg is talking about how like the baby has bound the mother, right, like it has a line, like you would put a line into a fast fish, but it's the umbilical cord how the baby is like connected to the mother and stuff. So there's like also some like genuinely like beautiful poetic moments in the freaking crazy book about cytology. I
mhm,
the other I love the whole section about loose fish and fast fish. That whole chapter by itself, that he explains what a loose fish is, which is like a fish that hasn't you know hasn't been cleaned, and then the fast fish is a fish that you have your line to, that you got to come get to it to claim it, and that we're all
mm,
basically loose and fast fish,
Hmm.
you know, because we're all citizens of something. We all belong to something that has kind of claimed us before other people have. And like the uh the the ending, you said it was, who was it that said it was coital, that they talked about it was Dune,
Me.
right? Frank
Yeah,
Herbert,
that's me.
right? The ending has to be one of the best endings ever. Both the ending and the beginning. The whole "Call Me Ishmael," and he's you know he's
Yeah.
tripping on the ashes. He's going into the freaking underbelly of Nantucket, but what he finds is fighting Quaker whalers or whatever. But that ending where you realize the full part of the prophecy comes, but I think it's actually quite devastating in the story that everybody dies. Literally
Yeah.
everybody dies, and this like the coffin whirlpools up, the coffin that became a raft whirlpools up for Ishmael to be able to survive, and free just the ship, you know, the ship's mast coming down. And I think it was what was the native's name, the second officer's harpooner,
Queequeg? Queequeg?
not Queequeg,
Yeah.
the American native, what was his name, Ta- Tash T, that like
Estego?
Uh,
Tashtego, that Tashtego,
Estego,
like
yeah, yeah.
he like you know inside the flag of the ship he nails a freaking raptor into it,
Mhm,
like the
Mhm.
ship is grabbing one last piece of the heavens before going down, like Just that's just a
Okay, intense.
crazy, surreal, absurd image of of the end of it all in that. And but even like I've seen lectures of this book, which is it's not short by any means. It's 240,000 words. And so it's like, but I've seen lectures, entire 45-minute lectures on just the first sentence, call me Ishmael. And what does that mean? It doesn't say my name is Ishmael.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
it
yeah.
doesn't say his name is Ishmael. It says call me Ishmael. What does he mean by being
I
so
was gonna. Yeah,
so and to have this character named Ishmael, the outcasted son, not the child of promise, which would be Isaac, but the son of Hagar, which people have said like, oh, that's a nod to the multiculturalism of the book. That he's like the slave woman cast out, but it's also a nod to the fact that he's going to be cast out into the desert, which are going to end up being the watery ways instead, and ultimately, have to
Oh,
but
temptation
also let go ahead.
desert. The desert also is a temptation place, and I think for Ahab, that's like a big, I mean, a big element of it is the temptation of vengeance and the temptation of his will that he can never let
Yeah,
go. I think just without cutting you, like just thinking about what you're saying.
yeah,
Yeah.
good.
I've heard people
I
say
I
that.
mean,
Oh, go ahead.
no, go on, Brad. Say it.
I
Say it's
was
fine.
gonna
I'll
say.
break.
I've heard an interpretation that Fadala is supposed to be Satan,
Mm.
and he's the one that's like tempting Ahab or like egging him on and stuff like that. I read that like halfway through, so I don't know. I thought that was interesting, and how like he's always like by Ahab's side and stuff like that. I don't know. How do you? What
Yeah,
do
and
you
he's
guys think?
he's like he's like secret, but he's also the one who's kind of like scared of his own dream. And then he obviously, his half body being ripped up is the portending of the prophecy.
Yeah, and
I
he gets
one
like pinned to the whale.
one thing on this read that was interesting, that was catching me a little bit. It's probably one of the only weaknesses of the book, I think, but it's part of the style, how it all just ends so abruptly, kind of like life, like civilizations, like everything. But there
Yeah, are
there's this open note on these characters like Queequeg and Pip, and especially Pip is one character that on this read I was more I paid attention to him more because it seems juxtaposed to Moby Dick. There is the story of like the whiteness of the whale, and he even talks about how the whiteness is what the angel of death actually looks like, and it's the sign of the race of civilizations or whatever. And then Pip, as a little black boy, is kind of like he's everything that's not Moby Dick. It's like this great force of nature that Pip is referred to like he's like the coward who jumped ship and they
mhm.
saved him. Which, by the way, he also got tangled. There's a really good line where it talks about all men are tangled in whale lines or whatever, and that's what put Pip in the water. And then they teased him by leaving there and then coming back. But Pip's relationship and Ahab's view towards Pip, and then Ahab's view towards Moby Dick, were all things that I think I saw. I saw a little bit more of the literature between the lines in those, because I think another thing is when you realize this book was written in 1851, you realize kind of just how ahead of time it was. I'm sure, I don't know if you guys mentioned it, but that like when Melville died, this book, he was referred to as like the author of Umu. This book was pretty much a commercial and critical failure when it came out. It
Yeah,
wasn't
Yeah, I was
until
reading about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't until the modernists came in the 1920s that saw Moby Dick as this masterpiece, as this Gesamtwerk. And the thing is that, like, this book, I love hearing him talk about like, oh, people are arguing about whether a whale is a fish or a mammal. But for today it's a fish, so we call it the pots fish, you know. And he mentions, like, he has lines, he's talking about like ancestry and evolution, which would have been a new concept at the time. I just got a phone call, sorry about that. But you still have at the time
I think you're cutting off, or is it my
I
audio
don't hear
cutting
him
off? Can you
either.
guys still hear? Oh.
I don't hear him either.
Yeah, I think you were
Oh,
mute
oh,
first.
can you hear me?
Mute
Sorry
for a
about that.
second. Yes.
Uh,
Yeah, you're back.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I got a call.
Sure.
So I was saying, like,
Are you
you
okay?
mentioned things about like vestigial organs, how like the bones
Mhm.
inside the whale's fluke resemble that of the human hand, like compressed. And and this is 1851. I'm like, you don't know how close you are. You know what I mean? I think like Darwin, the origin of species is from exactly like around this time. There was still like Lamarckianism, and there
Mm.
was like a theory of evolution, but it was like it was interesting to see him talk what people thought of that at the day, and he just kind of like accepts it as it is.
Mm. Interesting. I'm thinking about what Carell said as well. He said Ishmael is an important prophet in Islam, but no clue if Melville was aware of that. And it's interesting because Brian was saying like a lot of what Melville did was research and writing from research, but so much of it is also from his own experience I don't know if this is true that he had actually an experience in sailing. Do you guys know
That's what
anything
I
about
heard.
this?
That's what
He
I
did, he
read.
did.
Yeah,
So
it did. He did, in fact. Yeah.
he absolutely was the first stories. It's Moby Dick is kind of like a it's kind of a counter narrative to what actually happened to him.
Mm.
He sailed into the Pacific, and when he got to the Sandwich Islands, or what is Hawaii and French Polynesia, he abandoned ship. And when he abandoned ship,
Oh.
he stayed in that island or whatever for a time, and then he caught on some new ship to like return back to the United States. And it was in
Mhm.
there are so when I heard some sort of like Melville background, it seems as though there were few but very, very profound moments in his life that impacted him. He writes all these voice like his early stories, Umu and Redburn. They're all about sailing and about dealing. You know that all those ships are microcosms and dealing with the conflicts of man inside of these stories. But he absolutely, I think, knew the idea of Ishmael as the father of Arabs, the two fathers of two nations. Why you can tell how well versed he is, both in like biblical allusion and in Greek allusion in this story. Supposedly, all of
Yes,
that
I would
comes
agree with that.
because Melville didn't. I don't think he went to college, even though he's from an upper class Manhattan family. His father had spent a lot of their life's wealth, and I
Mm.
guess in trying to get rich or having problems, whatever. And so there was an embarrassment to his family where they didn't have as much money as their class status kind of represented. So instead of going somewhere like Columbia or Harvard or Yale, like someone like Melville was kind of destined to go, he had learned in secondary education, like Christian high school, these stories of the humanistic stories, the Greek myths and the biblical stories. And people say like it was that one class that if that was it, like that must have been the greatest humanities class ever, because this is where he gets all his allusions from someone who didn't get to go to undergraduate and graduate education as he wanted to.
Very interesting. I didn't know that. So that was a piece of information because it makes sense as well because in a way he's compiling this massive like encyclopedia inside the book, almost trying to perhaps catch up on his education in a way. I don't know, maybe I'm just going too Jungian on this as well. Or I feel that, when
Maybe.
you have a necessity to like be an autodidact, and I might be like that with stuff. Like I just want to like archive and annotate and make so many little things like that. Sometimes to compensate for other stuff. But anyway, um,
Yeah, and supposedly he was. And he wrote this book, he wrote it in like a year. He wrote it in like 9 months, something like that. And had it published. And I think because of intellectual property rights, even though Moby Dick is an American book, I think he first published it in the United Kingdom to protect the book
mm,
better before the United States, which is also pretty interesting for a guy at the time. But I do like this sort of, maybe he is making up for it. He's like this crazy autodidact who's putting all his encyclopedic knowledge in his stories, but it makes for compelling stories. It makes for something and it makes for some of the greatest conflicts of all time. But at the end of the day, what is the conflict in Moby Dick? You know?
Hmm. I want to pose a little question for you guys since we are going on more philosophical territories, because I was thinking of Plato's form of the good in the Republic, this idea of this massive sun and this luminosity as a metaphor for the ultimate truth. And oftentimes we cannot really look at the sun because it blinds us. So perhaps too bright for our mortal eyes. Okay. So, let's stretch that out a little bit into the whiteness of the whale as this over illumination. And obviously, as you're saying, like this, Melville's only education we can trace is to do the antiquity as well. And now that I annotated this, and now that you said that, it makes even more sense to me, because I always saw the whiteness of the whale not just as a sublime counterpoint of like the unexpected, of something that you wouldn't expect it to be sinful or bad or evil, but this over encompassing truth, literally in the
It's a
sense of not literally,
quintessence
sorry.
in the words of Plato. It's a
Yeah, exactly,
quintessence
a
of
quintessence.
light.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah,
for sure
in the
Melville
form
is
of the good.
playing with for sure Melville is I get from this book that he heavily is into this Neoplatonist tradition. The truth beyond what's empirical, the truth of the matter essentially or quintessentially. Exactly kind of like what you're saying
Yeah.
with regards to the whiteness of the whale, but more so kind of like, you know, what it means to be he even talks about it when he talks about you know what the people at the mast who are like falling asleep. You know, it's a great place for a Platonist to like think. But the idea of the water itself, or the right way to hunt a whale, or the right way to have a crew, the right way to be a person. You know, the difference between pagan culture and Christian culture. Their similarities come off as ones of essence, and their differences come off as ones of like, you know, this surface level culture. But I absolutely
Yeah.
see the Neoplatonist tradition in him. He's certainly, his fight with the world is the fight of the transcendent world. I think in his characters.
But even in the Bible, I mean, like this idea of transcendence in, I don't want to bore you guys too much about that because even Tyler is not here today to back me up on the Bible allusions. But you know, in Isaiah, there's this quote: "Though your sins be as scarlet, they shall be white as snow." And this idea of whiteness as redemption, but also as this pure terror revelation, because it's when you are completely naked to God. And I don't know, it's just so I don't know, I can help but think of that, because I think the whale encapsulates so many symbolic layers. Obviously you have in Revelations as well the idea of the white throne and whiteness coming as something that is both terror and
Yeah, the angel of death is white.
absolution,
You know.
right? Yeah, exactly, yeah. And even I've been reading Bataille a lot recently, and the accursed share, he talks about the idea of when excess, or even the excess of good things, is indistinguishable from horror. And I don't know, those thoughts are in my head. And I wanted to know what you guys are thinking, were thinking when you thought of the whiteness of the whale. Because for me, that is my favorite chapter, I have to say, and that's what I'm pushing towards so much. But the monologue, Ahab's monologue, which is very short. Is it sunrise or is it sunset? What's the name of the chapter? And Ahab's monologue. Oh my god, where
Hmm.
is it? I have the book next to me. And the whiteness of the whale are my two favorite chapters. And I think they sunset, sorry. And they both work as like oppositional. One, because the whiteness of the whale stretches in its meaning and it keeps going and keeps going and keeps going, almost like describing everything of whiteness to the point that it reduces to nothingness as well. I don't know, just
Hmm.
thoughts. What are you guys thinking? Maybe I don't want to go so far.
How does someone else pick up?
You guys,
Okay. Well, I mean, my first thought when, like, even before I got to the chapter, just knowing that Moby Dick was white, you can't help but think of the judge and Blood Meridian make
yes.
like what's it called? What's it called? Connections to that, and why I my brain always goes first to like purity, like God, and I guess or
Mm,
nature and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like this. unmovable force, unstoppable force, or something like that. And then, but yeah, in that chapter, if I remember correctly, he like he's like making connections like good and bad between white. Like white could mean like something good or like even like dangerous or some. If I remember correctly, right? He's just like making all these like
Yeah.
connections to anything, almost anything that could be white and stuff like that. But I don't know. I mean, if I had to say what I think the whale is, I think I would have to agree with Starbuck and think the whale is the force of God. That's the side of it that I fall on. And yeah, I
Mhm.
think it's it's like they bring up the story of Job, and like even in Job, it used to be called, what was it called? Oh no, Jonah. I mean
A,
Jonah and the
a
whale.
Leviathan, you mean?
Yeah, and what
Yeah.
was it
Yeah,
called?
Leviathan.
Like originally it was Jonah and the fish, right? If I believe
Oh
correctly,
yeah.
and then it's like Jonah and the whale, and even with the whale, and here they confuse it, or they go back and forth of what is it? Is it a fish or something else? And yeah, and that's what Jonah gets swallowed by the whale because he goes against God. Ahab gets killed by the whale because he goes against God. You know what I mean? It's all like a punishment from God is the way. I mean, that's the way I
And
see the story, and I see the whale as an extension of God. Like Starbuck is like, you're going against a whale for doing whale things. Like a whale is just gonna do what it does, and you're trying to like attribute all these like vengeful things, and like it's just a creature of God, and essentially you going against nature is going against God's will, and it's not going to end well for you. And I mean,
well,
it all comes to pass. I mean, it's
yeah.
and it's like to the point where like the whale breaks off, or who is he bites off Ahab's like leg that was already like his peg leg. It like falls off. He's like, dude, I will do it again. Fucking stop. He doesn't stop. And like,
To your point though, Brian, the first extract, I just got the book in my hand here. The first extract that Melville chooses in this extract section right in the beginning, just before the first chapter, is and God created great whales from Genesis. So I think
yeah,
what you said, in a way, backing up by the text itself. Um, yeah, like I also, to be fair though, like I'm saying all that about the purity of the good and the idea of the form of the good from Plato and all that, because I do think that those things play a part, but I would have to agree with you that in the most basic way, I do believe also that Moby Dick is just this force of nature, which ultimately is the force of God. And
hmm
there's no way you can go against something in their own territory as well. As you said, like you're going against a whale for doing what whales do.
yeah.
It's a, it's that's it, in it.
It's
Like, yeah.
absurd. I mean, it's absurd,
Yeah.
and it's just like you're gonna travel the whole ocean to find one whale. It's like it's yeah, it's fucking it's unjustifiable, and like I'm surprised they even found it. You know what I mean? Like, and like at the very end, and I was talking to my brother about it, and he was like, "How do you even know if it's Moby Dick?" Well, I was like, for the sake of argument, the book says it's
Not
because
only
it's the
that,
white whale.
you just do. I think this is the heart of some of the best points of Moby Dick, and I think it's genuinely Melville's internal struggle with the concept of knowledge and doubt. I think the way that like we were talking about the encyclopedic sections, but also his focus on his, the way that he likes to describe things platonistically for the time. Um, that the book is also, it's very funny. He has this flavor of irony with everything, just like,
Mhm.
the natives and the Christian men and whatever and whatnot. But it's, this book is filled with encyclopedic knowledge to try to measure, to try to describe, to try to encapsulate the whole whaling
Exactly.
world in one place. But
Mhm.
that is not possible. So like, what does it mean to know the world is one thing, like to try to the knowledge of Moby Dick is not contained in all the ideas of cetology or the practice of whaling. People just know who Moby Dick is because Moby Dick will fuck you up if you try
Yeah.
if you try him, and the idea of sailing the vast ocean to find the one white whale. I think is also like this is the colorful, I guess you could call it metaphorical or allegorical way. I think Melville's getting at, in the sense that we sail our lives or the ocean or the earth to find the truth, or what you might say the truth is to find God, right? Because God would be the ultimate truth, or nature would be like the empirical truth, the prescription of things, the normativity of the world. Which, and what is
Yeah.
struggling is that you just can't find it, no matter how much knowledge you have, and no matter how hard you try to fight, explain the unexplainable, you cannot win the battle, and that sucks because this is like, this is that sort. It's in That's why the modernists loved it, I feel, because even though this book is at, the in this romantic era, I think it's dealing thematically with things like knowledge and purpose and culture in ways that the modernists, the fight against the silent god, or the empty universe, or the hostile god, let's say, or the nature that it's supposed to be, that is so beautiful, and then it has all this platonic um sense about it, but then at the other sense it has all this violence and all this unfairness in the world. Fairness is a good thing that comes up, I think, in the book, which not just in the doubloon, the astrological doubloon, and obviously Captain Ahab gets it because he's the only one who wants to see Moby Dick. I mean, that's a conversation in and of itself. But also the idea that, like, everyone dies for Captain Ahab's, mission. Well, shit, if the whale is God, that's kind of fucked up. Starbuck didn't want the heat. So, but you take everyone down
Yeah.
with you. And so that those are at the heart of the book. It's the exploration of knowledge, and our purpose as people, and how that's really, really hard to reconcile, especially if you believe in an ideal, in a platonic
Yeah.
ideal.
You know what's interesting
Yeah.
is that. Oh, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. It's fine.
Well,
You go
I was
ahead.
just thinking. I was just thinking of kind of like the Garden of Eden. So was it called? So like they have no trouble killing whales, like sperm whales or right whales. Like there's so many whales for them to get, and it's like kind of like there's bountiful whales. Go do your thing. Just leave this one whale alone. You know what I mean? Don't fuck with this one whale, and then they can't help themselves. You know what I mean? It's just like they're like great whalers. Well, compared to other boats, like they know what they're doing. They're great.
Yeah,
You
they
you
got a lot
want
of
to
spermaceti, man.
yeah, and
you
then you
know
could live a great life, but they can't. It's just about they can't leave it alone. They can't leave it alone, and
Well, don't eat the apple
Ahab
in
can't
the
leave it
yeah,
Garden of
alone.
exactly,
Eden.
exactly.
Yeah. But you cannot help yourself, or you want to eat that one apple that you're not allowed to eat, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. It's I see the book also as like a totalizing archive, in the sense of like, not only has all those digressions that we were talking about, of like the whaling technology, cetology, art history, like all this stuff. And then I think is also like the modernists really love it because it breaks the form so much. And we didn't even touch that much upon that, but so many times in the book, like form is broken, like a chapter is really long, and then after a chapter is like a page, and
Hmm.
it's really cool. Like there's a cool vibe to it, right? But I think it also absorbs like so much of like the classical traditions in a very romantic way. It looks at the past, like the Bible, at antiquity, at Shakespeare, even at, as Forrest was saying, as like the science that is starting at that period. It absorbs everything around, and it just encapsulate. It's like a little time capsule of that period as well. I really like it. I think it's such a rich book. I I would say like it almost like mimics a bit like, this is a stretch, but you guys are gonna get it because you guys get me. Almost like an enlightenment by the end of the book. You feel like you're going through the enlightenment period, like in itself. Like you get it, right? It's like a capsule of everything that is grandiose and
Yeah,
human,
everything up to
and everything.
1851. You know, you get
Yeah,
it. It's on the
exactly.
front
Yeah.
page. The book wears it.
it wears it right there. It's like it does this absorption, this surrender to everything that came before, but it manages to still be completely innovative. I wonder why the book wasn't so successful when it came out, but I think it's because it's so, I don't like the term ahead of its time, because I think it presupposes that back in the days things weren't great, and you guys know that
That's
I
true.
think things were greater back then. But it presupposes that. But still, I still think that this book has a bit of postmodern flavor, way ahead of it. You know.
Well, I got an idea
Mm.
because maybe whaling was so prevalent at that time. You know what I mean? It was like maybe it's just like it was they were just too close to it, and it was just like, yeah, okay, I don't want to hear about this. I probably hear about this all the time. You know what I mean? With like relatives I know about whaling. You know, it was such a huge industry. Maybe they just chalked it up to that. I don't know.
I
That's
mean, I think about it in terms
Maybe.
of like fighting Quakers. If you read that at the time, you would just like today, you would just start fucking laughing. Like these
yeah.
men, these men of peace from Kentucky that don't believe in violence. But no, when it comes later on, when we're stabbing fucking and chopping up whales and wearing their penis, another interesting section of the book. Like oh yeah, these are Quakers that are doing this, by the way. It's like
Yeah.
and I think there's an irony in it. I don't know if I would if I would call him an ironist, and I feel like I call too many things irony
Mm.
anyways. It's it's the cheap way for the writer to elucidate their point through contradiction. It's easy, but even from that, and I think. And I think you already mentioned it, and then you mentioned it back in Blood Meridian. But in a weird way,
Mm.
Blood Meridian, 130 years later, I think it's like you take the lens of all of modernist history of the 20th century, and you tell the same story of Moby Dick, and that's basically what Blood Meridian comes down to. It's like a ragtag, a microcosm of violence and this inexplicable violence in this silent universe, and what conclusions do we come to or not come to, especially dealing with the quintessence of man, which I guess would be the judge, and the whale being more like God, and our interactions with those things and our prescriptions with the world. And you can tell how influential it is on it. I think he directly even mentions when they're by the beach, and they see the flukes of whales in the distance and stuff. You could tell how influential it is. And from what I understand, I'm pretty sure it's one of his like top four favorite books of all time
Yeah,
that he's
I
mentioned.
remember talking about.
Cormac.
Yeah, I remember talking about
Mhm.
Moby Dick in our Blood Meridian conversation, but it's been so long. But yeah, I remember this chapter. It really stood out to me as well. Like when they look at in the distance, and it's almost dreamlike. And I like to imagine that the Pickwick is just repeating itself like in constant flux, like in this state of like timelessness. I just
That's what
keep
he said. He
imagining
even
that because I
mentions
do
the
feel.
Pequod, I think. He mentions the Pequod by name. He's like, "Oh, we're like a perverted Pequod or whatever." He says this in Cormac
Well,
style, like, you know.
well, what do you guys think about the very ending? How he like gets onto the coffin and he's like picked up by the Rachel. I mean, I'm gonna say what I think. I kind of saw that as him like on a coffin. I feel like he's like in a purgatory almost because the ship is looking
Mm,
for other lost sailors, and like you could say it's gonna go back home, but the way it's worded is just like it's wandering the sea looking for lost sailors. You know what I mean? And I kind of saw that as Ishmael being in the purgatory. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. That's immediately what I
I
thought
I
when I
I,
read
I
it.
think I think you're right. I think that there's a cute nod to when he first goes into the bar to discover like his little crew at the beginning there. That
Mhm.
like he trips on some ashes, and
Oh yeah.
instantly in my head I'm like, oh, he's descending. He's in hell now. Everybody, like
Mhm.
he's tripping on the ashes, on the cinder. So now what are you gonna do? You know what I mean? And then when he's in limbo, then where does he go?
Yeah, and like Queequeg is supposed to die, and he doesn't.
Yeah,
Oh, and
yeah.
Louisa, you posted
mhm.
those
Yeah.
photos, those paintings, and then I couldn't help myself, and I looked at them before I finished reading. I saw Queequeg in a coffin. I got sad. I was like, "Oh, Queequeg's gonna die." Then, I mean, he
Did
does, but
you?
not like, but not as soon as I thought he was going to. You You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
On also
Uh,
this
But the
topic
chapter
of
about dying
God,
was so good. Like the chapter he thought he's gonna die. He's like, okay, just
uh,
give me a coffin.
yeah,
That's it.
he's
And you just
trying out his coffin, and like the carpenter, it sets you up by saying, "Oh, the carpenter who can make anything you want on the ship or whatever," and
uh,
he like, yeah, which might be a nod to Jesus and God again, by the way, but he's like snuggling his coffee. He's like, "All right, this will do," and then it's just better the next day.
Well, here's
yeah.
the
And
thing about the coffin. The coffin too has they put like similar markings of Queequeg's tattoos on it. So it's like Queequeg's still alive, and there's a coffin that modeled after him almost. It's like life and death. That's why, and then he's like on the coffin at the end. To me, that's like in between. You're in purgatory. I don't know. I mean, that's what I get from it.
I love the idea that when Ishmael, who got saved, right, like that it becomes his life raft, right? They
Yeah,
reappropriate it to a life raft, even though they tried to make it the best possible death vessel. Now they have to make it a life vessel. Again,
yeah,
more of this idea of Platonism, right? The quintessence. What does it mean to make that's appropriate for death or appropriate for life? Oh shit, there is no difference, man. That's hard to deal with if there's a God. But
yep,
like, so the idea of Ishmael like being inside that little life raft, like, well, I got a story to tell. Like before
yeah,
he ends up washing up somewhere, he's in a little coffin. But it's a life device, even though he's in a coffin. He's probably laying there like Dracula,
yeah.
just
I was imagining it more like Rose at the end of Titanic, just floating.
yeah, yeah. That's probably more appropriate, but I like to think of him in the coffin. But
I
uh
I imagine the coughing
I mean,
more
they have
like
to seal it somehow so the water doesn't get in. But yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
for romantic
Uh,
reason, I guess.
I imagine the coughing more like a mini Noah's Ark, or even like Moses when he's like floating
Mm,
in the deadly waters
oh
and
yeah,
like,
yeah, in the basket.
carrying
okay.
like some form of like pre-configuration of salvation. I don't know, like something a bit more symbolic.
And
But then
he
again,
lives
I look at very
go
biblical
ahead.
things all the time.
Of course, and it's all over this, and he lives in order for the story to be told, right? That's the one of the big things at the end. Like this whole story had to have been told by someone. Who, you might ask? Well, I was the one who fell out in the water and got back up. Signs of people have likened that to an idea of a baptism, right? That he abandons ship, kind of like Pip does, but he gets back in, so he's saved by going into the water and coming back. I think obviously I like to think of why the whale was such an important part of this. Besides convenience, that he actually was like a mariner. I think you can't think of a story with a whale without thinking of the story of Jonah. And there's
Mm,
chapters about Jonah at the beginning, and they talk about the Leviathan and the story of Jonah all throughout. And when I think about this book in terms of like one of the main conflicts is this contradiction of how we're discovering the world and the truth, in the mid 20th century or the mid 19th century, was that Jonah, and he even mentions this, that the way that Jonah was ultimately saved was by not abandoning his faith. You know what I mean? It was like Jonah stuck it out, even though he's in the mouth of the Leviathan. And
for
when he
three
stuck it
days.
out, yeah, it went for 3 days, like
The chase is
Jesus,
3 days. The
and the
chase is
chase
three
is three
days.
days. That's true. And go ahead.
Interesting that you think, obviously, like Jonah, because I mean he's all over the text. But I also think of Job in this idea that he's the only one that escapes as well in
Right.
Job.
I have to tell the story
Yeah,
like Job says at the beginning of Job.
yeah.
You know.
And even because we keep talking about the judge in Blood Meridian, that's this underlying thematic in Blood Meridian as well, of like always leaving someone alive to tell the story is almost like a testament of the reality of this massive like massive cosmic reality just happened, but someone is alive to tell the tale, because that's what makes it real, right? Almost like, because in Blood Meridian that happens all the time. There's always someone left to tell
Hmm.
the story, like, and I think this
Hmm.
happens here. I think it's just one of those like cosmic incidents as well. Um,
Yeah, that's how
yeah,
I've
I
seen
see
it
it like that at
described.
least.
I've seen like it being cosmic. I read that it's associated like the sea is the universe, the ship is Earth, and the whale is the Force, and it's like all like can be seen, the Force of God or whatever, or the
Yeah.
Force of nature.
And the Force is weird, and the Force is contradictory, and the Force can be violent and unfair. And so what do we do when we go a whaling, when we discover the
Yeah,
watery ways, when we try to discover the universe, we have to deal with all this challenging shit, regardless of all the shit we already have. And that's the magic of it while you're reading it. That's like, because I still think someone who has my own sort of biases towards transcendence or essential things, but also how easily they are to be skeptical of and doubt, but also how flawed, how fallible empirical knowledge is. And so all those
Yeah.
arguments, those are still the things that happen in my brain. So not a lot has changed in 100. I mean, this book is 170 years old. That's that's crazy. This book is from before the
It's crazy to think
United
about it.
States Civil War. You know,
yeah.
It's wild, isn't it? Like when you read stuff like that still has such resonance today. And okay, Moby Dick is a book that I'm so jealous that that there was a me that wrote this book. It's so perfect. But then I get to read it and enjoy it, right? Like there's so many books like that. There's like I wish this is like so like there's so many thematics here inside this book that are so the things that I like to talk about and discussed and like but he made it so perfect and it's perfect.
has
It's brilliant,
has
really.
anyone seen the John Huston movie
No,
with
no.
Gregory
No.
Peck? All right, because it's pretty bad.
No.
Obviously, this book,
Is
this is
it?
one of the books that like you can't. This book, like reading it, is part of the form. Like the medium is part of the form, and the book part of the fun. But it's
Yeah.
bad. They change a bunch of stuff. They have to cut down the book. It's not Queequeg who gets sick. It's Ahab who gets sick for some reason. Anyways,
Oh,
it's
it don't
just
make any sense though.
it doesn't make any sense. But that's what it is. Uh, but yeah, I was bringing that up because this book was more than 100 years old when that movie was released. So it's just kind of crazy. But he I wanted to mention other also because we're talking about how long ago this book was written, but that this was also written at a time Melville was part of, I guess, you could say, a group of Americans, like Melville, for example, he knew Nathaniel Hawthorne, and he met him before writing Moby Dick, before after. But Nathaniel Hawthorne was actually quite famous at the time because he was like America's premier writer. And when this book was written, I don't know if there was a name for it, but America had not it's funny to talk about now because American literature is so prevalent in the world of the arts today, but American literature didn't really have its own place yet. Like this idea that the Americans would have their own canon, their own style, like the English do. The English have this long, rich from Canterbury to Shakespeare to now, and a lot of people were kind of the opinion, well, the American canon is just part of the English canon, right? Because they're just both parts of the English speaking world. And this idea that America would have its own unique literary tradition, and where it can begin and end and has its own considerations, and it's distinct from that of the English. That was a question at this time, and Melville was someone who believed in American literature's sort of uniqueness and its primacy, you know and obviously today I would say American literature has exceeded that. But today also we definitely do see both traditions as distinctly different, like Regal,
Yeah.
and Jane Austen and the Bronte sisters, for light and dark examples, are not in the same sort of canon as Toni Morrison and William Faulkner later on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I actually have a question for you guys in the United States. Like, how is this book introduced in school, if it is introduced in school? Because I mean, Moby Dick is this figure in culture that everyone knows it, but I don't know how many people are reading it now. I suspect not as many as you should be reading. But do you guys have a class in about this book in like high school? Like, even if how is it mentioned in school?
So now you're
If
making
it
me
is.
sad.
It wasn't
I'll
mentioned to
answer
me.
first. Yeah, you're making me sad because at one point in time, I think I mentioned this in the chat, or I mentioned this to somebody. At one point in time, this was like required reading. This was like what your high school students were expected to be able to read and engage with in class. And I know my father talked about how you know in high school when he was in high school it was like big news that they weren't teaching Moby Dick anymore because the world was falling apart. But my grandmother who was not who learned English at an American school but was not from an English speaking part of the country had to read Moby Dick in English school, growing up. Yeah, and so now I think it's such immense work that it's still iconic. You pick someone off the street, you ask them what Moby Dick is, they'll talk about, oh, the big whale. It's crazy how it still permeates through pop culture, but how little people have actually engaged with the text when this used to be something you were expected to engage with as a pupil at one point in this country, and now you don't. Now I don't know what you're supposed to do, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It wasn't introduced to me at school, and I honestly cannot tell you how I know about it. It's just one of those things that's just so. It's just like one of the greatest books ever written. You hear, and it's just everywhere. I think the first time I ever heard about it was probably everyone watched that movie, The Page Master,
Yeah,
with
yeah,
Macaulay
with Macaulay
Culkin. Yeah,
Culkin,
yeah, they have that little
Dr.
section
Jekyll and Mr. Hyde
yeah, in
at
the
the
Moby Dick
beginning. Yeah,
section. I think that was probably the first time I've ever really heard about it. But yeah, I think they do Moby Dick in more advanced like college courses. I think here in America, if I'm not correct. Like I was watching a video and this lady was talking about Moby Dick, and she said the first time she read it was for college. I don't know.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, like
yeah,
my experience growing up in Brazil, like I mean, I didn't went to like a very traditional school. My school was like proper alternative, so we were reading like all sorts of things like very young. But I only read Moby Dick in English when I was living in Canada. So, and I do feel like it makes such a big difference reading in the original language. And like it works. I think it works in much better in English. But it's one of the things like
yeah.
I do feel like the classics are becoming more obscured. But Moby Dick is always going to be like a big the big whale is always going to be remembered, like in the sense of like even like in the Simpsons, like there's a little joke. I really like
oh
the
yeah,
captain from the Simpsons, and he's like and then he goes on, he's talking, and the people go to the store and he says, just a moment, Ishmael, like little bits like that, like in culture, like people laugh, they understand it, right, even if they haven't read the book. I love the captain in Simpsons so much. He's like one of my favorite side characters. Is amazing. But yeah, and I always like remember that little bit. He's on the phone and he says, "Just a minute, Ishmael," or something like that, and it's great. And it's those just little bits that, yeah, like I think like if you grab someone, five people in the street, random ages, I feel like they would know at least the gist of like
Yeah,
how
they
the book
would know
is.
it's a whale,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, they would know at least it's a whale. We haven't lost that yet.
so
Yeah.
here's
But isn't
some of
it
I
like
my
was
what's the point of it? Like, is it good or is it bad? Because that's one of the things I'm gonna bring it again that I don't like
It's
about the Crime
absolutely
and
bad.
Punishment. I don't like
Oh,
Crime and
go ahead.
Punishment because it's the same way. Like everybody says, like, oh, the dude kills the grandma with an axe, and then he's sad about
With the
it,
act.
and then that's it. And that's why I don't like the book because of this idea and the meme and the culture, and everybody just talks about this and not stuff behind it. And similar with Moby Dick, like, oh, there's a dick and he chases it, and like, wow. And I know it, I don't need to read it, and that's why it kind of ruins the book a bit. And kind of, I didn't want to
it,
reread it because I thought I know about it because everybody talks about it, and I thought I knew because everybody knows it. And then when you read it, it's like, oh, that's completely different. It's not just that. You
yeah,
kind of the culture
Yeah,
ruins it.
freaking
You have to step
you,
over
riding
it
the
to
yeah.
kind
whale
of
is
appreciate
like
it.
the last 40 pages.
you gotta
Yeah.
you gotta experience it because even like I kind of knew what was gonna happen. It's still like just experiencing it affected me way deeper than I thought it
Yeah,
would
yeah, yeah,
have.
yeah, yeah.
It's like what Louisa and Lewis were talking about in the last Acid episode about how people have all these preconceived notions before they go into a movie. They think they already know all about
Yeah.
it. You know what I mean? And it's like I don't know. This book, like more than anything, what's it called? That just like it's so like simple too. Is what's so great about it.
Yeah.
Like it's just them after this whale. Like that. Like if you want to talk about the plot, you know what I mean. Like that's it. You know what I mean? And it's like I don't know.
But that's what
I
I
I
mean.
know
That's
there's
what ruins
so
it.
much
Like if you
more.
simplify it this way and you talk just about this and you don't talk about all the layers, 1,000 layers of different things. Or if somebody
exactly.
talks like what people say, like, oh, it's kind of Christian book. It's something about Jesus, and then it's something about chasing a whale and the dudes on the boat. And I'm hearing this like, oh, I'm not really interested in dudes' adventures and Jesus, so I'm not gonna read this because that's the whole discourse. And you can
Yeah.
pretend like, okay, I'm not gonna listen to discourse. I'm not gonna listen to it, but it's so prevalent that it kind of ruins it and it puts
One
like a
bit of
wall for you.
information. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's it. Like it kind of puts a wall for you. As I mentioned on the podcast, right? Like if you're gonna see a new movie that you haven't seen before and you research through the internet before it, yeah, that's one thing. But another thing is when you grow up and it's on Simpsons, it's on whatever, it's on
Yeah.
whatever. And by the time you learn how to read, you're like, oh, I already know about Moby Dick. Maybe I would read something else because something I don't know about and something I think I might be more interested in while you lose the
Yeah, that's
opportunity because the
absolutely
culture ruined it
like
for you.
it's like a cultural or intellectual chilling effect on the book you want to read, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
you don't want to get to it because I feel like I already know what happens. You
Yeah, yeah,
know,
yeah. That's kind of
you
what I
get
mean.
like
That what's if it wasn't for the book
Get
club, to be
complacent
honest,
with
I don't. Sorry, if it wasn't for the book club, I would probably not revisit it anytime soon because there's hundreds of other books I would rather read. And now I read it, I'm like, oh, that was pretty good.
there's a lot of mimetic relationships, especially with literature. I'm gonna bring up a good one right now, a controversial one. There's a lot of mimetic relationships with literature that like these works become famous because of how culturally prominent they were. And so, you know, mimetically people condense them and we feel like we know, but man, like, dude, Moby Dick is so much more than a dude chasing a whale. Although all it really is us chasing whales, isn't it? But anyways, like I think a good example is like when people call other people Uncle Toms.
Oh yeah.
That's a literary
okay.
reference, right?
Yeah. Uncle Tom's
Uh,
Cabin.
it's supposed to be insulting to black people, to African Americans, for you know for not being, I guess, for being too, you know what an Uncle Tom is, right? For not being vicious enough
Yeah.
with what people would describe as their political or their material competitors. Whereas in the story Uncle Tom's Cabin, Uncle Tom is number one, it's a very Christian story, and Uncle Tom's sort of sacrifice, his willingness to turn other cheek against his abusers is, you know, people, especially after modernity, might call it, you know, dumb and gay, but for lack of a better term, but that's what softens the heart of the slavers who abuse Uncle Tom, right? That's what makes them trying to realizing that they're being bad Christians, even though they kill Uncle Tom. Spoiler alert. It's what makes them want to become better people and not slavers. So you know, it's mimetically like, oh, you're Uncle Tom. You just, you know, you're not being tough enough on people who want to hurt you, and even though that's really a class description or whatever. So
Yeah.
you know, they call you basically being, you know, being pussified in the face of politics when it's like, you know, that is so incorrectly used mimetically, and this is a literary reference with nobody who has a relationship to the literature. Same thing with like Moby Dick. You know, Moby Dick is just about big whales. You know, oh, you want to catch you want to catch a big whale. There's one of the biggest memes of Moby Dick today is frat boys. I remember this from when I was in college, calling dudes who like overweight women Captain Ahab. Right, the hunt for the white whale, I guess you could say. And it's like, you know, if you knew anything about the ironies of Ahab and what the whale does to him, that wouldn't be the cleverest joke in the world because everyone's gonna die. You know what I
It's so
mean?
so surface so
That's true.
surface level.
Yeah, it's bad, man. It's bad. But I don't want to be a doomer. At least reading is making a comeback. It seems. I see more readers every day, which is good. But it's just, you know, people they call this a sense of, on Twitter. There's the buzzword, which is like media literacy, which I think is a horrible word because
Oh
it's not
God.
media literacy. It's kind of it's just literacy. It's just opening the book to begin with. You know what I mean? Like it's just making
We were talking.
good arguments
I
to
know.
say. Go ahead.
We were talking about this. We were talking about this, Louis and I. Like people love tossing the term media literacy now, but it's just the basic literacy. Like, are you
Yeah.
do you understand symbols beyond just what is in front of you? Like, it's so absurd. Like, I don't know how you guys manage on Twitter though. Like, I had to go on Twitter. I created a fake account. Listen, I created a fake account in another profile because I wanted to see stuff about the mass shooting in that Christian school that happened last week.
Oh yeah.
This
Mhm.
week, this weekend I did. Yeah, and I was trying to get the manifesto. I was like, I want to see it. And I created a fake account for like a minute, and then I deleted it after. And I went on Twitter for like 5 minutes trying to find a thing, and all I saw was a bunch of dickheads talking about, no, this means that the guy is trans, therefore this means this. No, 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 he was actually this, and it means, like, it was a bunch of idiots just arguing and not looking at the fact there's a bunch of kids that died. There's a manifesto. There's a bunch of gibberish. And like everyone is so blinded by their opinions.
No,
And I
absolutely.
saw it
There's
many
a
times with people
horrible
talking about media
political
literacy.
essentialism. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Continue.
sorry, I went off topic, but it's just it bothers me, and we were talking about this because, like, Weapons is an okay film, and we enjoyed it. We had a great experience. But if we had seen the discourse around it, we would already go to the cinema knowing so much about the film, having a preconceived opinion about the film, about the director. I didn't even know that he was in the Whitest Kids, and I really
Whitest kids,
liked that
yeah.
show. Yeah, I learned that after, and I was like not knowing that about the film actually made, like, I don't know. I would probably try to find like comedic elements if I knew that, but I didn't know. I just went blind, and I think it does. There's an element of it that is good when something is so prevalent in culture. Like here in the UK, there's so much things about Shakespeare, and it's great to breathe the air that Shakespeare, like, like, be around that.
Mhm.
It's great, like in Brazil, like being from Rio, there's so much things about bossa nova, and you're around that all the time, and it's great. It enriches the experience. But there's also what Jay said. Sometimes when something is so prevalent, but I think it's when something is so prevalent and people don't really know what they're on about, and that makes it idiotic, right? It's good to be around culture when it's being,
It's
I don't
yeah,
know,
it's like a game of
portrayed to you
telephone
in a
where
positive way.
like a game
Yeah.
of telephone. Like no one has read it in years, and it just morphs into like this
It's
basic
a it's mimetic. Becomes a meme.
mimetic. Oh, okay, yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
becomes a meme.
But
Yeah,
it's
it is.
only I think Mo said something as well. It's only media literacy when it's about capitalism bad.
Yeah, yeah, no. That's the other
Like,
thing is that
yeah.
there's so much there's so much political essentialism towards
Oh God, it's
narratives,
so boring.
towards and I just think like the flavor of the world is that people are complicated. You know what I mean? You could find
Yeah,
if you find somebody politically contradictory, that's a good thing to analyze. That's what it's going to tell you about the world. But I think people like to chop up things into essences, which that may be a criticism against Mr. Plato, I guess, but I suppose they might be wielding the sword of Plato incorrectly. Um, but like they'll kind of like what you're saying. This shooter, the Minnesota shooter, that you know because he's trans, he's got to be one way. Oh well, because he talks shit about Israel, he's got to be one way, or
mhm.
because he said something about Christianity, he's got to be one way, or the race of this. And people are looking for one thing to fill the hole. It's essentialization, when in reality, this is probably like uh, clearly incredibly sick and disturbed person. Why would you ever believe to find consistency in what they believe in and what they do to themselves? Well, because some things that people do to themselves have to essentially be good, and some have to essentially be bad. So you can't have the contradiction if you have that worldview. That's the problem with a lot of people today. Oh, you cannot essentialize this. Capitalism bad has to always be the fulcrum of the cyberpunk genre, or else you're media illiterate. Well, but then there's a great sort of black swan moment when you have beloved cyberpunk writers like let's say the video game, maybe Beloved is a controversial topic there, but the writer of both Cyberpunk, I think William Gibson is not like a crazy anti-capitalist either. He's quite a milquetoast liberal, you know what I mean? So like when you throw this in, when you throw the author into the genre and you have this sort of like black swan moment, I think that's what'll get people to kind of like reevaluate what they're reading. But in any case, this is just a long-winded way of me saying that the flavor of contradiction is more entertaining, anyways. But these people probably just don't engage with the humanities in ways that have flavorful contradictions, like the story
Yeah.
of Moby Dick.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, going back to Moby Dick, I feel like Moby Dick is pure, like a character like Ahab is pure contradiction, and what makes him interesting. If anything, I feel like characters were more interesting also when authors had a bit more of a total vision of what they believe was morality, you know? I feel
Yeah,
like authors nowadays, contemporary literature struggles with creating characters because it's flip-flopping and walking on eggshells on what they perceive to be moral. And they oftentimes have a very black and white vision of morality that doesn't hold up in when you put it
yeah,
against another character, right? And I mean, this is why the characters in Moby Dick work so well, because they all have their own unique flavor. You have Starbuck and you have, I mean, they're all completely unique, but they all kind of work within one, like their own morality systems, and they kind of shock within each other. But and as Brian said right in the beginning of the conversation, towards the end, that's all. It's like, fuck it doesn't really matter because nature will take over us all,
Yeah,
right? So we
yeah,
circle back to the beginning of the conversation in a
yeah.
way.
But it's also not very clear. Like they have the like moral compass, but sometimes it goes back and forth, right? Like they have a moment where Ahab is like, "Yeah, maybe I should go back.
no,
Maybe we should
Mm.
stop it." But then he's like, "No,
good.
fuck it. I'm not gonna stop." Right away, he goes back. Sometimes he's like, "No, I'm dedicated to the goal. We're not gonna stop to fix the barrels." But then he's like, "Okay, no, let's stop and fix the barrels." And
Yeah,
same with Starbuck and others. I mean, others not that much, but more Starbuck, right? He was like, "I should kill the old man and stop it all at some point." Or at some point like, no, we need to rebel and stop it, I don't want to die. And then he always goes back and forth trying to figure out, I want to go back to my family, I don't want to die. But at the same point he's like, no, but maybe I should stick around for a bit more. And always back and forth, like trying to explore the moral, trying to there's a lot of action and morality talk, not just like the talk of morality, but they do action, they do one thing, they try to do the other thing, try to do the other than uh, people say one thing and do the other thing, and then or people just say one thing what's everybody wants to hear, and so on. That's what I like about the book as well.
Mm. We have been
and
talking for an hour and a half. I feel like, I mean, this book we can talk for hours and hours and hours, and to be honest, there's so much more that we didn't discuss. I would like to hear if anyone has anything else to say. Or, I mean, we can always take the conversation to the hangout if you guys want to hang out.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's the thing with the book, that what maybe 1.5 hours. There's so much to talk about, right? You
I want
can
to know
talk
one
forever.
thing.
One thing that I was thinking when I was, they all also meet different ships and different names, and you can even talk about names of the ships for hours, right? The one is a
oh my
virgin who
God,
cannot
yes,
get anything. The
Oh
Rachel
yeah.
looking
who
for
has
babies, and
spermaceti,
so
and then
good.
the Bachelor that's filled with spermaceti. Yeah. And I always thought it was funny. I guess the polemicism in me is thinking like,
Mm.
when I'm reading them on their whaleboats, like, oh man, the white first mates stand atop the non-white to get a view of the Leviathan.
Is it gone?
Hello, sorry, I got
Oh.
a phone call again. But yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
That was all.
Yeah, that was one thing I was wondering is the slang for sperm already a thing when this book was written?
Yeah, yeah. He mentions it in the book. If
It
he's
does.
like, oh yeah, he's like, oh, it looks like sperm where it gets its name, but we found out it wasn't. It comes like from its oil from the melon or whatever. He mentions it. It's pretty early in the book.
I think
where
it's
spermaceti
pretty
gets
early,
his name
somewhere in the
from.
middle. It's somewhere in the middle.
Maybe it is in the middle. What? I don't know, man. It's the memory. All right, but he mentions it. Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I want to know is
Hmm.
why is that character named Starbuck if they don't mention coffee once?
Why
Yeah.
is the
Right.
character named Moby Dick?
Very clever. Has anyone ever watched Battlestar
Galactica.
Galactica?
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
no, I've
That's
never.
it's just Moby Dick, right? Yeah, someone explained that to me the
Huh?
other day. A good friend of mine. I
I
think
mean, it's
Star Trek: The Wrath of Khan as well is like very Moby Dick. Like he says the exact line when he strikes fucking Khan. I had a friend give me all the good
it,
sci-fi references. Good.
Yeah, I was
isn't the other
expecting.
Metal Gear as well? The other Metal Gear. I
Oh, the
think
Metal Gear
Kojima is
5.
obsessed with Moby Dick as well. Yeah, I
Metal
haven't
Gear
played Metal
Solid
Gear
5.
5, so I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I heard.
that's where I learned a lot about Moby Dick was from Metal Gear Solid 5.
Oh man, I've played 1 through 4 and I haven't played 5. So
5 is
I
awesome.
haven't.
I love
No way.
5.
Play 1, 2, and 3 only. I haven't played 4 or 5.
my hot take is that I don't really like 4,
Neither.
but I
I
like
don't think it's a
3.
hot take.
I don't know, dude. Go on the
What's your
Metacritic for
favorite?
fucking the 3 for sure.
I don't know.
Mine's
I
2.
like.
Louis is
I mean,
3, I think. Yeah, I think Louis is 3.
I love the first one. The second one I love in concept, and of course number 3 is great. But and then like number 5 is up there, but I really dislike number 4.
Yeah, I don't care for number 4. Although the last battle is fun.
Oh yeah.
Nick, your memes
Have you guys
are
played the
dead.
new one?
No,
Not
you talking
playing
about the
that.
remix Delta?
I'm not gonna play that.
No, I mean like Kojima's new was it Death
Oh,
Stranding? Is it Death
Death
Stranding?
Stranding 2. I haven't played 2.
No,
Played
like
1.
Haven't played
is
either
it
of them.
good?
It's
No, I
good. Yeah,
haven't
I
either.
love both of them. And you get Refn and Guillermo del Toro. Like, what's not to love?
Oh yeah, they're in it. Oh, that's
Yeah,
nice.
they're in it.
I don't know what I necessarily think. I must say I don't know what I think about like actors playing characters in video games. I still find it a bit uncanny, and I mean it's cool in a way, but also I like the idea of just having characters that like, I cannot see in real life, like people that are completely made up. So
I
I don't
think
know if it
Kojima
could
is
ruin it a
just
little bit in that way.
obsessed with Hollywood and wants to be friends with everybody and bringing them into games.
No, my argument would be like why you don't
Yeah.
want to do an actor because if they do sequels, then what if they change the actor? They would change the likeness, but they do that already. Like with Spider-Man game, when they moved it to PS5, they changed the character model, and I'm just like, I don't know. It's jarring to me. I was like, this is like the one medium where you can get away with having a consistent model, and you guys completely changed it. It's I don't know. To me, it's baffling.
Well, it
Decision.
costs money to pay them.
Oh
Unless
no,
they
but
sign the papers to give away the likeness to AI, then
I don't think the first one was like likeness.
Hello, so editor notes for anyone that's watching this video version of this recording right now. I'm gonna chime in here saying that I have been here the entire time, as I usually am, even when I'm not in the book club in this conversation. I'm just here to say it's nice that like these people are just like yapping on not about Moby Dick anymore, about bullshit. I don't even know what they're talking about. And like yeah, I thought it's pretty funny how this always fucking happens. So yeah. Oh, now Louis is saying this, change the subject. Anyways, like yeah, so that's the end of my part. So thanks. I'm keeping this all in because I think it's funny. Bye.
But like, then you just cast an actor for a video game where it's like, your video games don't want to be your movies, and your movies don't want to be your video games. But that's just less and less true as the time goes on, I guess.
Mm.
But
Mm.
it depends on the person and I mean, if it's good, it's good, right? Who cares if fucking Christian Bale is playing, I don't know, Indiana Jones
Spider-Man.
in the Spider-Man, yeah, fucking Green Goblin or some shit. So long as the game is good, I'm
The fucking name of
I'm
the game, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, is like the worst name
Title.
ever. It's the worst title for it. It's so bad. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle.
What are you,
Okay.
some
who's
kind of
ready for
circle
the
hater?
Elden Ring game. But what were you gonna say, Louisa?
That she hates circles.
No, that's it. Oh yeah, I was gonna say. No,
Is that better
Jay,
or
I do
worse
love
than the
circles. As a
Dallas?
matter of
Fucking
fact,
circles. I mean,
no,
triangles is the best. Everybody knows it, but still.
triangles maybe debatable actually. No, I was gonna say we are
What?
50% of the way through Mass Effect 3, Liz and I. So we played 1 and 2, and it was awesome. I swear it was so
Hell
good.
yeah.
And now we're
1
like
and 2 are
50%
awesome.
through. I'm so scared because apparently Lewis told me, I didn't know that everyone
Oh,
hates the
is that a
ending.
fan game?
Don't spoil it. Don't spoil it if anyone knows the ending. Oh,
They didn't make a
I
third
mean,
Mass
and
Effect, bro. I don't know what you're talking about.
wait, what? It's like one of the best ones. What?
What? The
well,
third one? No,
well,
there's no third Mass Effect.
no.
No,
See,
you can
that's what
tell
I'm
me there's
saying. Like I don't
sequels
know.
to the
Don't
Matrix.
even.
You can tell me there's a Godfather 3 too. Yeah, whatever, buddy.
It's like the Godfather 3. Louis woke up because Louis been a bit sick, right? I think I don't know if everyone was in the beginning,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
he's been on painkillers. There's some painkillers, but I feel like he
Hell
heard me
yeah.
laughing talking about Mass Effect 3, and he came. Wait, I'm gonna take the headphones off for a minute so he can say hi.
In the background.
He's in the background. Wait, let me take the headphone. How do I take the headphones off? Wait, bear with me, okay?
just
Because
take them off your head.
Yeah. What kind of headphones are these?
we're like Luddites. Wait. Oh, is it working now? Can I? Is it? Blah blah blah.
But
Can you
the
guys hear
first
us?
rule of gaming, the first lesson on gaming is how to take on and take off your headphones and how to turn on microphone so you can tell people they suck. And then when your mom comes in, you need to put on headphones to take them off as well. So like initial skills.
Everyone's made that mistake.
The worst one is when you think you have headphones on, but the audio is playing in your speakers. That's like
Oh
you
no,
learn it
I've
fast.
been there. I've
Oh,
been
yeah.
in that. I've been there before.
This sounds like a very good Moby Dick discussion.
Hell yeah.
What's up? What's up, Lewis?
How is everyone?
Should we go to the hangout?
good.
Because we basically stopped talking about the book like 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah,
Let's
that's
do it.
my
Do it.
grade.
All right.